Welcome to Mobile Rolling. After the break, I'll be joined by someone who's been involved with the most influential people and horses that South Australia has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome to Mobile Rolling Rex Vanstone. Some would know Rex Vanstone from the stud at Mount Crawford. Others would know him from Butler's Bridge in Port Pirie. Welcome, Rex.
Thanks, Gary.
Now's the time to tell us all about your life.
Could take me a while.
Well, that's okay. We've got an extended program tonight.
Good lad, yeah. The harness racing part of my life actually was probably the biggest part of my life. It started when I was about 22 or 3, or about the time just before I'd met my wife to be, and started with just a mare that she had herself, and we bred a foal. Turned out to be Waiyuro Chief, the first horse that I trained, and fortunately the first time he started and I drove, we got the money first shot, and so that kicked things off pretty good.
Prior to the involvement there, it's probably prudent that we tell people that your wife was Margaret Ann Connor.
Correct.
And a sister to both Frank and Bill Connor.
Yep.
And of course, Frank Connor was Digger Connor, who drove the Inter Dominion champion.
And the Hunter Cup winner the same year.
Yeah, so just tell us how you got involved. I know that you came from the farm at Butler's Bridge with your brothers. I think you had a few thousand acres there or whatever.
I come from Wandera, district next to Butler's Bridge. And then my brother and I bought a property at Butler's Bridge, which is about 9 miles. Just
what year was that, Rex?
About 56.
1956.
Yeah.
Might have been a baby then, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, I can remember when you were that size. My brother and I took up this farm.
Is that John, is it?
John,
yep.
Yeah, my older brother, and run that. And after got married and got a horse thrown in as well, which was my wife's horse that she had raced, called, fortunately, Radiant Margaret.
Oh, right.
Which was the mother of Waiyuro Chief, our first winner. But I'd had a lot to do. I hadn't had anything to do with racing horses, but I had a lot to do. Rode the horses to school on the wagon with my father, carting wheat to the railway siding. And so I had an upbringing with horses, but not just racing horses. But I learnt that, and fortunately, I had a very good teacher in Margaret's brother, in Digger.
Digger was the oldest, wasn't he? And then Bill, and then Margaret?
Yeah. Margaret was the youngest.
Margaret was the youngest, yeah.
But he was a really good horseman. He could go and get one out of the paddock, break it in, train it, drive it, shoot it, do the whole shooting works. Him, and then a bit later on with Bill Shin. I think I had two of the real top men to teach anybody about harness racing.
So your relationship, we've sort of gone a bit quick, but the relationship you had with Bill Shin when you had the golden era of, you had, did Bill have flyover? I certainly had Rocket Robin and...
I trained him for a start, flyover, with Digger, my brother-in-law. He drove him quite a bit. And then I sent him down to Bill. It was a fair trip from Pirie to Wavell, or down this way. So Bill trained him from there on, except when he'd have a spell, he'd come back to Butler's Bridge and I'd train him up and perhaps drive him in a couple of races, then send him down to Bill.
Yeah.
But we had at the same time, we had Flyover, Bonnie Eden and Rocket Robin, all in work at the same time.
So Flyover, did he win? He certainly, I remember he won on the first meeting at Globe Derby. Did he win at Wavell, or did he race in Melbourne?
Yes.
He did. He raced in...
He won his first start in Melbourne too.
At the showgrounds, yeah. And so he was a magnificent horse. I think you showed me a photo before of him winning at Snowtown, I reckon it was. It's a pity we weren't still racing at Snowtown. That would have been a perfect
terrific
venue.
track. It was out in the middle of nowhere, but I think it was a half-mile track, probably the only one at the time in South Australia.
So he was a New Zealand bred horse, wasn't he? Was he by Flying Song?
By Flying Song, yeah, out of a mare at the time called Van Lass. Well, we bought her in foal, and Flyover was the result. And Flyover got named by Flying Song out of Misty Clover. So that's how that turned out.
Okay, so as a young man, you obviously being on the farm, you would have had to have played football for Wandera, I presume.
Well, when I left school,
if you don't, you're in trouble. If they're going to make the team up, you're going to play, whether you can play or not.
When I left school, we didn't even have a team in Wandera. After the war, they didn't get going again. So Mundura, which was reasonably close, only 10 or 12 miles away, played for them. And
so they're the red, white and blue, aren't they?
No, Norwood colours, red and blue.
Oh, yeah.
And I was 15, 16 and 17, played in Ogre, won 3 premierships in the first 3 years.
Oh, you got spoiled.
Oh, never won another
one. So did you play for Wandera at all? You only even played for Mundura?
No. Wandera then got a team.
Oh, yeah, they were purple and white, weren't they?
That's right, yeah. Same as one of the Port Augusta teams.
Yeah, West Augusta, yeah.
And now the Dockers.
So how many games of footy did you play in that? What league was that? Broughton League at that stage?
It was Western Areas and then Broughton.
Yeah. So how many games did you play?
300.
300? Yeah. So you played a couple?
I played a lot of association football.
Oh, that's good.
Played in Adelaide in association.
So you came down to, did you come down to school in Adelaide for a year or two or not?
1 year. Yes.
Where was that to?
At Urbray Agricultural School. And learned to
play football there in Adelaide, or did you go back?
That was probably the first because we didn't have much footy in the young, primary schools. But played footy for it was only me and another fellow with only 2 first years that played in the first 18. So I played footy there and then went back home and away she went.
So when you, Margaret had a magnificent eye for a horse. She knew a good horse, and obviously she got that from her mother.
From her mother.
Her mother, and I think you were telling me that, was it the wedding present you got a horse, or?
Well, you
got a wife and a horse.
I got a wife and a horse.
You got a double bonus.
And both turned out pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what was the horse that you got for your birthday, or was it money out of a birthday present or something?
No. My brother and I had this farm together, and he wanted some money out of the account to buy a car or a ute. And I had a ute at the time, so I didn't need it. So he got 500 quid, I suppose, out of the account, and he got the car, and I got a
500.
I bought a horse.
He went and bought a horse.
Yeah, and it turned out to be Mr. Clover.
So you ended up buying a lot of utes of that, didn't you?
I started a dynasty. Yeah, she kept had a hand in right to the last horse in Bobby Hanks. He still had a bit of Mr. Clover Flyover in his breed. Yeah.
So you trained and drove in Pirrie. I can remember you driving some for Cyril Potts and some outside stables.
Before Peter Thompson sort of got going.
Peter was just young.
I used to drive for Cyril. Yeah. Probably drove 1 or 2 for you.
You did, I think. I'm sure you did. And I know I remember you driving Coco Nor for Bill Shin.
Yeah, that's right.
So how did you become involved with Bill Shin, who is obviously one of the finest horsemen?
Yeah.
But, you've had Digger Connor and then you've had Bill Shin at the same era. Yeah. How did you get to, you just don't say, I'm going to go and see Mr. Shin. I mean, how did that come about?
Probably, Margaret and I went to Melbourne to an Inter-Dominion, and we went to a yearling sale. And
she wanted a ute and you wanted a...
No, this is after that. With the thought of perhaps buying another filly to perhaps be a broodmare. And there was a filly came in the ring, and Margaret said, "That one looks all right." So she started bidding on it, and unbeknownst to me, Bill Shin was sitting just in front of us. I just knew who he was, that's all. And he just turned around to me and he said, "There's another one coming in directly that," he said, "I've got the 2-year-old full brother to it. Goes all right. Wait for that one." All right. So we did, and we were the highest bidder at $700, I think, and turned out. Passed in, and he said, "I know the bloke that bred it." He said he wants $1,000 for it. He said, "Go down and offer him that, and you get it." So I did. Turned out to be Bonnie Eden.
So that was Kay Hutchins, is it?
Bill,
Mr. Hutchins.
Hutchinson.
So Hutchins, yeah. So Bonnie Eden won, what, 30 odd races or more than
38
that?
races.
38 races, and she was a full sister to James Eden.
Yep. 2 or 3 others too.
Yeah. There
Thomas
was
Eden.
Thomas Eden. There was a
Couple others.
There was about 8 or 10 winners that she had.
Yeah.
So did she? I know James Eden went over to Perth. Did Bonnie Eden? She won the South Australian Oaks, didn't she?
No, she ran second in the Oaks here and second in the Oaks, I think, in Melbourne.
Yeah.
She won 2 or 3 other classics as a 2-year-old, Breeders' Plate and 2 or 3 of those sapling stakes.
Yeah. So then did you break that in, or did you give it to Bill? Did you just give it to Shin then?
No, a chap, this is another trotting people, Hancocks from Spalding.
Yeah.
Adrian's grandfather,
Yep.
Marley Hancock.
Yep.
He broke in Bonnie Eden and Rocket Robin. So he had a couple of hand and a couple of nice horses.
Mm-hmm. Well, Robert's still got 1 or 2 running around.
1 or 2 still. Yeah.
And it's interesting that Adrian Hancock was the auctioneer for the yearling sales that we helped conduct, and he rang me and said, I won't. This will be my last, Gary. He said I started auctioneering with the harness horses, or the trotting horses, the paces, and he said that was my first auction, and my last is going to be the same. So, but he's a wonderful. He's like the Bruce Mac. He's like Bruce McAvenny.
Exactly.
He knows all about all the breeding and just loved his. When he was auctioneering for the 2 years he did it, like he just brought another level to it because he just knew everything about the horses and
talking about Bruce McAvenny, we got to know him fairly well. Mainly through here at Globe Derby, my wife and I used to sit up in the stand. And right behind us was Bruce's mother and father. Mm-hmm. When he was calling here, and he'd come up and say good day to his mum and dad every meeting, and always stopped and spoke to us.
Yeah. I know his mum and dad from being mixed up in the media with him, and I always used to say, you're very proud of Bruce. She said, I've got 2 boys, and I'm very proud of both of them.
Exactly.
I think his dad used to work in the tax department. So
I don't know.
Yeah. So. Obviously, when you had the horses at your top, when you had Rocket Robin and Flyover and Bonnie Eden, you were going fairly long days from Butler's Bridge to
Melbourne,
to Richmond to Bill's place, and then over to Melbourne. So, did you take? Obviously, I know Bill Shin never flew, did he? He always drove everywhere.
Exactly.
So he would have took the horses, and you would have had to go along and take some as well.
I'd come down from Perry with my float, and perhaps one that I had there, maybe Bachelor's Joy or one of those horses. And pick up another one with Bill. We'd quite often, the 2 of us would take 4 horses to Melbourne, and I don't know whether we ever came home that we didn't get the check with 1 or 2 of them. Had a pretty good run with them.
Oh, even the horses that he had that weren't yours. Like Liam Glenfern for David Chow, and then like I remember he had a few of the horses for Barry Allchurch when he had Globe Score and Thunder Score and all those horses there, and. He was a master horseman, that's for sure.
Well, Thunder Score was racing at the same time as when we had called Rearwarra Chief, and raced against him here in Globe Derby, and there come a race in Melbourne, and Bill nominated Thunder Score, and he said, "Why don't you put Rearwarra Chief in?" I said, "I can't beat you here. I want to go over there and get beat for." And he said, "No, you never know on the day." Anyhow, I put him in and.
And you won?
Drove him myself.
Did you?
And won. For my first go at Moonee Valley.
So who was the normal driver for those horses, Bill?
Yeah.
Ryan and his son driving at that stage?
He drove Misty Monarch, who was a half-brother to Flyover. And Trainover, who was a half-brother to Flyover.
He was a trainer Hanover, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Pretty hard though. It's like with Major Crocker. You get to the horses you've had, and then some of the others that you think, well, people go, they're just a nice horse, but they're well above average. But the others are champions. That's the difference.
And that other little mare that I said, Bachelor's Joy, she was a corker little mare. Bit ratty, but she could run.
So, we've got to stop here, but we'll be back next week with part 2 of the very, very interesting interview with Rex Vanstone.